And a very well welcome to the podcast, Jeff Bailey. How today, Jeff?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you, David. Pleasure to be on your show.
No, my pleasure. So let's get this started. So where are you right now on planet Earth?
I am in Boulder, Colorado,
Oh,
planet Earth.
okay, Boulder. So if you were to give some sort of review, Jeff, of Boulder, Colorado, what would you
Oh,
say is the most important thing about it? What would you advise people to move there?
well, Boulder is the self-help capital of the universe. Uh, it's a kind of a health mecca. There's more yoga teachers than there are, uh, you know, teachers probably. And so, yeah, it's a very healthy place to live. I sometimes joke that we live inside the Boulder bubble and we age very quickly when we go outside of it.
Okay, and what do you mean by the bubble? I mean, why has it become this kind of phenomena that, this is the place where everybody gets a bit of self-help?
Yeah, well, it's right at the edge of the mountains, so we have the Rocky Mountains in our backdrop. So there's lots of trails that people hike on. Years ago, the some of the founding forefathers of Boulder County started buying up land. The county started buying up all this land around it. So we don't have a bunch of sprawl. There's
Right.
just a lot of open space around it, and it's just a very attractive place to live. It's a little expensive, but it's a great place to live.
So is it Celebrityville around the area? Do most of the
Just
to relax and chill out? Do they come along and kind of like to get a bit of R and R?
Yeah, I think the celebrities stay in California mostly. I don't think it's there's a few famous people here, but I don't think of it as celebrity like Aspen or Vail or Hollywood, that kind of thing. But yeah, so it's kind of low key too, which is nice.
And what about temperature wise? What are we talking?
Temperature wise, it's got a great climate. We get a good winter, so we can have very cold temperatures in the winter. We get a good amount of snow, but then it tends to warm up and it melts off. Summers can be a little hot, but not extreme. We're not in the south and we're not in the north. We're kind of in the middle of the continent.
Right.
So
And
it's
would you get
pretty
many
good.
tourists coming? Would tourists be
We
kind
get a
of like,
lot of tourists. Yeah.
wow,
A lot of
okay,
a lot of
all
people come
year?
here to visit. Yes, probably a little heavier in the summer, but we have national parks around here. So people do like to come to Boulder and visit. We're very blessed to be able to live here.
And have you been a resident of the vicinity for all your life, or did you move in yourself?
So Boulder's in Colorado, and I am a Colorado native. I grew up in the mountains, right in the middle of the state, and just a fantastic small town. My dad was a veterinarian. I learned all my anatomy, physiology that later was applied to my yoga there as a kid. And I traveled through my 20s, but I came back to Colorado and just landed in Boulder. And um, staying here and staying put was one of the best things I did. I had to resist the urge to travel and stay put. And I heard this voice that said, "Stay in Boulder," and I didn't wasn't sure I'd be able to make it work, but I stayed here, and so much healing, so many good things happened being here. Yeah.
Okay, I mean that's pretty cool. So if you then kind of bring us back, like go back all those years. If anybody's watching this podcast on YouTube, you're not going to guess Jeff's age. So generally, there's going to be there's no filters, as he's promised me. There's no filters on his camera whatsoever. So let's go back, Jeff. How many years will I? Oh, there you go. Not one wrinkle. Not one wrinkle.
They'll show up if I get
That's
closer. Don't worry.
lots of
They are there.
moisturizer.
Yeah.
Lots of moisturizer there. Good moisturizer.
Yeah.
Full recoverable. They shall bottle it. They shall bottle it. So let's go
Yeah.
back. How many years do we go back, Jeff, before we start? So let's start from, say, your high school up, going to college, and let the listeners know a little bit more about your background and why we're
All
talking
right.
today.
Yeah, good. You want to go deep. I love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Uh, well, so people often say, how did you get involved in this yoga? Because I've been in the yoga world now for 45 years. I'm 61, so in my early 20s, I took my first yoga class in Gunnison, Colorado, and I can't even tell you how I ended up in this class. Must have seen a flyer somewhere. I just showed up, but I remember walking out going, "Wow, I feel so good. I haven't it was such a new thing to me. And this is in like 1985 when nobody really even knew what the word yoga meant. So I asked the teacher, I said, what is this thing called yoga? And he said, well, yoga means to join. Okay. Why did we just spend an hour pulling ourselves apart? It didn't make sense to me. And now, to more directly answer your question, David, I was drawing in that moment, I was drawing on my past as a kid. From the moment I could remember, I was helping my dad, helping with dogs and cats and going on calls with him in the country. Gunnison was a very rural place, uh, ranch land everywhere, and cowboys, real cowboys. So we got to know some of these men and women that were just the salt of the earth, fantastic people. And we would go and take care of their cows and their horses. But I helped with a lot of surgery, and I'd see animals after they were in an accident or some sort of an incident where they needed to be repaired. And I just remember from all the work that I did with my dad, muscle tissue doesn't really stretch. And stretching is such a huge part of the fitness world and a huge part of the yoga world. And it felt very contradictory to me. Because if you go to the store and buy a piece of meat and try to stretch it, it doesn't have any stretchy characteristics at all. So I stayed with the practice. I experimented with it, even though it was kind of this big question in my mind. So through my 20s, I did a lot of traveling, and I practiced with lots of different teachers, tried different styles of yoga, and I stretched, but it it, it didn't feel quite right, and so I my I just draw on that rich childhood experience and the fact that my dad just wanted to teach me everything that he knew. He taught me, he would quiz me when we were driving in the car about what different muscles were. And he taught me to identify muscles, and he'd quiz me on the digestive tract and how the heart worked and all that. And I was like 8 years old,
Right.
so I just learned all this stuff. It was important to him. So it's part of me. I understand anatomy and physiology really well. Uh, so, that's kind of that section of life. I could keep talking about it or move forward, but uh, maybe you have another question, or you want me to just kind of keep going on that theme?
You keep cracking along. I mean, you mentioned there's stretching. I mean, yeah, especially like myself, I'm 48 years of age, and I probably have the flexibility of a train track. But in terms of stretching, I mean, what do you mean by stretching?
Yeah. See, that's the big point. One of the big points that I would love to make is there's a difference between stretching, or let me say it this way. There's a difference between flexibility and mobility.
Okay, so
Just
which is
yeah. If you think about that for a while, flexibility has to do with the resiliency of your whole body and the resiliency of your muscles. And I believe that most of us are born with a certain degree of flexibility. Okay. It will change over a lifetime because if you think back, David, to when you were a boy, you probably had more flexibility than you do now.
yeah.
But see, then in puberty, the hormones kick in, our voice changes, everything goes haywire, and the body just tightens up because of the hormones. With women, it tends to their bodies tend to tighten up later during the menopause years. There's sometimes a trend, and so hormones and different chemistry in the body will affect our degree of flexibility. But we're all born with a certain degree of flexibility, and I call it it's our constitution. We all come in with a certain constitution. So that's why gymnasts become gymnasts, and runners become runners, and cyclists become cyclists. And people who try to be really flexible, if you're a really flexible person and you try to be a football player, you're just going to get destroyed. So you have to have a certain degree of tightness in your body to move into sports like even like skiing. Tighter people tend to be good skiers because their bodies are just held together. But if your body has this loose, kind of sloppy constitution, it's really hard to ski. It's almost painful. So, so we don't try to change our flexibility in Avita yoga. And that's a big relief for a lot of people. But then you say, well, I want to be able to move better. Okay, let's don't try to change your flexibility, but let's target your joints to increase mobility.
Okay.
See, even the tightest of people can start to have an impact on their joints if you target the joints. I sometimes give this example of, you know, we use our pointer finger a lot these days for mousing and poking buttons and things like that. So it tends to be a place of a little resistance. So you can take your finger and just start to move it into the restriction, whether you have any pain there or not. But see, you can start to move it into flexion and see how it starts to get white and it starts to kind of, you feel the sensation at the level of the bones and the joints. That right there is Avita yoga. We're going for the bones and the joints. Now, if there is arthritis in any given joint in your body, when you start to move into it, oh, ouch, ow, that's painful. Oh no, let me get out of that. See, if we avoid the pain, we are never going to have a change. So there's one primary skill that I teach in Avita yoga, and that is how to discern the difference between pain and healing sensation.
Okay. Now this is going to be interesting. Okay.
This is interesting. This is the crux of it.
Right.
So too many people are too afraid of the pain, and pain is just a messenger. You know, you've heard the metaphor, don't shoot the messenger. Because if
Yeah.
you shoot the messenger, you're killing your source of information, and then you're going to be worse off. So so we want to treat pain as a messenger. So here I go, and I'll demonstrate some other shapes for you too, because we have them for the hips, the shoulders, the knees, the toes, the neck, the spine, every joint in the body. We want to have full flexion and extension. This is flexion when parts come close together. This is extension when they move away from each other. So back to healing sensation. Let's just say I have a little arthritis right here in this joint. So, which is a lot of people do. It's kind of common. So I start to move into it. Oh, there's a little bit of pain. There's that arthritic pain that I just don't like. Stop. Stay with it. Relax a little bit. Let the shape become a meditation. Oh, wait a minute. The pain is gone. All of a sudden, the pain is gone. I just feel kind of a tightness. Stay. Stay with it. So every shape in Avita, we generally hold between 1.5 to 2, sometimes 3 minutes. That's how long it takes to cleanse the joint. And I'll talk a little bit about the physiology, the cleansing that happens. So let's just say a couple minutes go by. Now, what's going to happen when I release? If there's pain there, when I release, it's going to be a little bit painful again.
Yeah.
So we go slow. We slowly come out of the shape and we go right into the next one, somewhere else, another part of the body. We don't shake it out. We don't interfere. We just go right into the next shape. And the problem is if we we really want to get out of the idea that something bad is happening because joints love pressure, and I can talk about why in a minute. So we don't want to shake it. We don't want to, you know, erase that sensation because the physiology is still working for us. In fact, for the next 12 to 24 hours, what I just did on my finger is going to continue working for me. That's how this cleansing process works. we're cleansing joints and we're remodeling bones. Remodeling is a medical word. Like you remodel your house, we can literally change the shape of our joints and bones if we're consistent and kind with our practice.
So why then, Jeff, I mean, arthritis, for example, where does that originate from? I mean, is that genetic? Is it because, I mean, you have all these kind of old wives' tales, as we say in Ireland, they're not drinking enough milk or calcium or, the
Yeah,
usual. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, where does it usually
yeah,
originate from?
yeah. Great question. Um, if you search online, you say, where does arthritis come from? You'll almost always get answers like overuse or injury or diet, smoking, alcohol use, those kinds of things. So, so a poor diet and alcohol and cigarette tobacco use that contributes to a lot of things, just the same way stress contributes to a lot of ill effects in the body. And a lot of times you'll hear things like, as you mentioned, hereditary. The doctors will even start to say, well, it's hereditary. Did your parents have arthritis? Yeah. Well, okay, so you're doomed to have arthritis too. But I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I don't think arthritis per se is hereditary. Now, mostly I'm talking about osteoarthritis.
Okay.
Uh, the rheumatoid arthritis, RA, is a more of a systemic thing, and that might be a little bit hereditary. That can certainly be traced to um, environmental factors and diet and things like that. Most people have osteoarthritis. And so, to answer your question from my perspective, and I've been doing this kind of yoga for my body almost 3 to 4 times a week now for 10 years. And I've resolved arthritis in my body. I've changed the shape of my hip that had a serious injury to it. I've solved arthritis in my shoulder, and I've helped thousands of students do the same thing. So, so the book is coming out in August. It's been a 5 year project writing on this book. So it's a huge paradigm shift that I'm really hoping to introduce to the whole world. So thanks for being part of that. But the for me, the source of arthritis, well, let me say it this way. For me, arthritis is nothing more than a toxic environment inside the synovial capsule.
Okay, now you're getting
Okay.
deep, Jeff.
It's
Okay,
going deep.
synovial
Yeah.
capsule. What on earth is that? Do it for dummies.
Yeah. Okay. I will. It's because we I have to dumb it down for myself. And it's really pretty simple. Everywhere you have an articulating joint. So all of my fingers, all of your fingers, the wrist, the elbow, all the stack of bones in your spine, your hip, your knees, your toes, those are articulating joints. Articulation just means they have a good amount of movement. Everywhere there's an articulating joint, you have a sheath, a thin membrane of connective tissue that wraps around that joint and it seals it perfectly. Inside that synovial membrane is synovial fluid. You with me?
Yep.
So every joint contains fluid inside it. What is the purpose of the fluid? Well, it's viscous. It has a little bit of an oily quality. So it's a lubricant. It's filled with proteins and things like hyaluronic acid, and it has collagen fibers, and it's loaded with all kinds of nutrients that help fortify the cartilage and keep nutrients going into the bones and the cartilage around the joint. All that makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. Everywhere in the body, everywhere you have cells, which is everywhere in the body, cells make up tissues, tissues make up systems, and systems make up the body. Every cell produces energy. There's a little power plant in every cell. And what do we know about power plants? Where if they produce energy, they also produce waste.
Waste. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you got to get rid of the waste. And we know the body has lots of ways to get rid of waste. Now, tissues have, you know, we have blood vessels and arteries become capillaries, where it goes down to little tiny, tiny vessels that are one cell thick, where there's an exchange of nutrients. So, nutrients at that deep cellular level, the blood brings nutrients to cells, and then the waste products that come from the cells enters in and it's carried away and it's cleansed and eliminated.
Yeah.
Okay. What would happen if we had blood vessels inside of our joints? They'd get crushed.
Yeah.
We can't have blood vessels inside the joints, but we do have cells and tissues inside the joint that are undergoing a metabolic process, keeping the tissues vital and healthy and alive. So, where does the waste product go from that metabolic process? See, if this is the, say, the condyle of my femur, and this is my tibia, my lower leg and my upper leg coming together to make my knee. That's
Yeah.
kind of how the knee looks. And there's a little cartilage in between. And then there's this fascia sheath, like I could put a piece of plastic around it all and contain it. And if I sealed it up really well, I could fill it with fluid. Now I have a knee joint. So all of the tissue inside the knee is undergoing a metabolic process to stay healthy, which means there's waste products coming out of it. Those waste products end up in the synovial fluid as well.
Right. Okay.
Now, how's the synovial fluid or any given joint going to get rid of those waste products?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Especially, yeah. And I
Mhm.
don't think it's being asked enough.
Mhm.
The answer is pressure. And now we can go back to my childhood, because as this all started to dawn on me, I would flash back to cows sitting in the pasture, horses. Just imagine any quadruped. If you have a dog or cat, notice how they lie around a lot. They curl their front legs under, and then their back legs are usually forward, but the hip and the we could say the knee of the back leg is under a lot of pressure because it
Yeah.
all kind of goes up like this. So, and that's how I'm sitting right now. So, so we could say, you know, this would be, this right here would be kind of simulating the pressure that a cow or a horse would have on their front knees because they just kind of curl under. And so, and I'll show you in a little bit how, if you how we approach a shape like that, because it took me a couple years to be able to sit like that. And I had to get through the idea that it was a, just because it hurt and because I couldn't do it, I had to get past the idea that it was a bad thing. So, so there's a big mental shift that we have to undergo if we really want to take responsibility and make our joints healthy. It doesn't mean you got to put your foot behind your head. It doesn't, none of this yoga gets fancy. It's very, very practical. And it's mostly for people who just want less pain, more mobility, and maybe stay off the operating table. Because I think a lot of the joint replacement technology is getting so good, it's getting to be so common. I think people are undergoing surgeries when they don't really need to yet, especially with the technology of Avita yoga.
Jeff, can I just ask then with the mental shift there you mentioned? So, say for example, yet again we go back to stereotypes that it's older people that have these issues and they have
Mm-hmm.
these problems, and especially the ones that are kind of feeling it as they get out of bed in the morning and they feel the creaks and the pains and the aches. How do you kind of try and shift that mental shift from those individuals to kind of say, actually, no, this is a different way? Or have we become so lazy? Because you mentioned technology just there. It's just simplistic. Oh, okay, I get a new hip, I get a new knee, I get a new ankle,
Yeah,
a new
yeah,
lung. I mean, sarcastic. If anybody's listening,
yeah. No, you're right on. It's unfortunately it's not that sarcastic. New brain. Um, um, yeah. So where does it start? Where does that shift begin? Um, Let me think back to my roots on that. I had this terrible ski incident at the age of 50, and it affected my walk. I just couldn't get rid of the pain. And for me, um, I just thought to myself, and I went and said, I'd see the doctor and they say, yeah, you had a bad accident. You're just going to need a hip replacement someday. That's the answer. And just do PT in the meantime. And I just thought, no way, I am too young for that. Even if I wait 10 years, I don't want to be in pain for 10 years and live through the pain and then wait till the time when I'm supposed to get the hip replaced. I mean, that's just so complacent. And I'm just what I call that in my book, I refer to that as giving our healing power away. Now, it doesn't mean you don't go see doctors. It doesn't mean you don't go get help. It just means that you keep treating it like information. I just want to get more and more information about my condition, but I am not going to give up. I'm not going to just give my healing power away. And I think that's what it boiled down to for me. And I just thought, I mean, even at the age of 61 right now, I'd say I am too young for a joint replacement. I am not going to go there. And so I just asked for a better way. And one day after a yoga class, it just kind of dawned on me. It just came to me. I was in a shape and I felt the pain in my hip. I felt the pressure. And I'll show you what that is. Okay. So this is a shape called Sukhasana. And this is a shape you see a lot. If you know, it's a very common Sukhasana shape. It's called easy pose in the world of yoga. And if you look, I'm bringing my heels in close like
Yeah.
this. And we bring our heels in close because it's comfortable. It kind of simulates sitting in a chair. But I had my legs out like this. So the way I cue this shape is now the leg closest to me, which is my left one, is parallel to the wall in front of me.
Okay.
Now, if there's a lot of tightness in the hips, if there's a lot of restriction in the low back, your shape is not going to look like this. When 10 years ago, when I had this hip pain, the shape looked more like this. I could barely sit upright. In fact, that's why I have a wall here. We do a lot of work at the wall. So now, for somebody brand new that has a lot of hip tightness and maybe some low back stiffness, I would recommend leaning against a wall, and the shape may be knees high, just like this. But can you sit here, close your eyes, let your knees begin to drop toward the floor, and just have the experience of the feedback of the sensation? So at first, sometimes we feel the tightness of the muscles and we feel the restriction of connective tissue and fascia, which is kind of like a shrink wrap. That stuff just gets kind of just tightens up and adapts. But the fascia is also very malleable. So going back to the psychology still, I have to want a better way. Nothing good. I've never seen a student advance or get better if they didn't want a better way. And believe it or not, some people will do the yoga. I've done privates right here with people who I know are not asking for it quite deep enough. They're just going through the motions and they don't really trust the process. And they've already sort of signed up for the knee replacement. Those people don't really get the results. But if you really want a better way, then you sit with it and you trust the process. And let's just say the knees are high, your shape might look like this, but then the next step is coming off the wall and slowly curving forward. And now I'm asking for the low back to release. I'll scoot forward so you can see the low back has to curve. With my feet out here like this, I'm asking the low back to curve. And so I'll feel tightness in my low back and I'll feel tightness in my hip. This is the shape that changed my life. It is a very potent shape, but you have to start where, however your body shows up in it, you start. Sometimes we do it just for variation, elevated. Now, elevated, it helps me get past the tipping point so much easier.
Right.
So we see, and this is what I teach. We have to find a way to enter into the shape safely, confidently, and sustainably. We got to be in it for a little while. So now I'm curving forward, and let's say right there. Oh, yeah, there's the stiffness. I feel it in my left, but my right's okay. All right, so be it. That just means there's an issue in the left hip. It's the same thing we did with the finger at the opening of the practice. I'm hanging out in the shape. I'm making sure the sensation is healing. It's not taking my peace away. I slow my breath down. I close my eyes. I relax my jaw. I let the shape work for me. See that? I'm
Yeah.
not trying to push it. I'm not trying to do something fancy. After a couple minutes, I slowly raise up, pause, rest a moment, switch the leg cross, because now it's a whole different shape, and curve again. And so that's the idea of how we go through the body systematically, and ultimately we want to address all the different joints in the body. And if someone has a particular issue, like a knee issue or a hip issue, then I have these workshops that people go to, and they get you get homework shapes. So there's usually 3 or 4 shapes that I'll recommend people do almost daily until their knee or their hip or their shoulder, whatever it is, starts to get cleaned up and gets mobile. And then, you're in the practice systematically going through all the joints in the body. There's lots of variation.
And
It's
how
a
long would that
pretty
take then, Jeff? I mean, say the easy pose, for example. I mean, how long would you have to be, uh, say, doing that pose? You don't go a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or
yeah,
just until we get some results?
I would say 1.5 to 2, maybe 3 minutes each leg, you know? So the whole thing could take you 6 or 7 minutes. And if that's all you did, if David, if you only did that shape almost daily, I don't recommend doing anything religious or regimented. I'd say almost daily. That means you skip a day once in a while.
Right.
So we have this lightness about the practice. And if you just did what I showed you, I would bet money that within weeks, you'll start to feel a difference in your hips. And there would become a time when you'd say, hey, I am not as stiff as train tracks. Something is starting to loosen up. And it's not we're not stretching your muscles. We're going for the fascia. This, if you look at an anatomy chart, you see the muscles, but then where the shiny white stuff comes around the joints, that shiny white stuff changes.
Right.
It adapts. And that's what loosens up. The pressure inside the joint pushes the toxins out through the synovial membrane where it's cleansed, and then new, fresh fluid is produced. So it's a cleansing, remodeling, and um, it just it brings results for anybody who is willing to practice. It works pretty well. It's like brushing your teeth, It's hygiene for your bones.
That's a nice way of saying that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Vaccine for your fault. Very
And
good.
if you think about it, if you think about it, somebody had to invent the toothbrush, they had to invent the dang thing.
Yeah.
And then they had to convince people to do it. Like, what
Right.
do you want me to do? Brush my teeth? That sounds crazy.
Yeah. Scrub my gums. Yeah. That's what
Yeah.
what
Okay, let me try it.
what about like individuals that are sitting for long periods of times? Say like, at an office desk or for example a pilot, a bus driver, anybody that's kind of like
Mhm.
sitting like a couch potato on a normal daily basis. I mean, is this important for them? I mean, are they more prone later on in life to have problems?
Yes, I think we all have the same propensity to joint problems, whether you're really active, you know, if you're a runner or a cyclist, for example, your hip is doing this. It's the same movement over and over and over. If you're sitting at a desk or sitting on a couch, it's the same thing over and over and over. And the joints don't like repetitive movement, not so much because of the wear and tear, but because they just get in a groove. And the hip joint, for example, is a ball and socket joint. But if if all I do is walk and run and maybe ride a bike, see how it's the same movement.
Yeah.
But the hip, as I demonstrated, I demonstrated cross-legged, but here's soles of the feet together. See, the hip has all this extra movement. And if we don't use it, we lose it. That's in a way what this practice is all about. We want to use every corner available of the hip. So if I sit on a bolster, or if you were to sit on some sort of elevation, and if you're tight as train tracks, maybe it looks like this at first. I'm giving a lot of information here.
Oh, you're good. Keep going.
This is a 9-pound sandbag.
Okay.
Okay. Sometimes, sometimes people have so much rigidity in a hip or a knee or maybe even a shoulder, but it's usually the hips. We need to add a little bit of weight. So if I was coaching you through a private session and I had you in this shape and I said, knees wide, feet together, and your knees were like this, and I said, David, what do you feel? And you said, nothing. I don't feel anything. Okay. We need to add a little bit of weight. We can put it on the knee, we can put it on the thigh, we can put it over the ankle. And now we have just the right amount of weight so that now, oh yeah, now I feel it. Okay. So then we have to enter in to that restricted area to some degree. We don't just use the weight to advance the shape. We're not trying to impress anyone or ourselves, but we've got to get into the sensation that lets us know change is happening. Uh, so yeah, see, I'll just I'll stand up for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, so and you're going to lose my upper body. But if I'm walking, see, now I just have this really simple movement through the hip and really simple movement in my knee. I'm not using all of it. So so we don't have to perfect the shape. You don't have to be able to sit on your heels. You just have to be willing to go into the resistance. So I'm getting on a roll here.
Oh, you're
So
good. Keep going. Keep
so
going.
if I lie on my back, if I have my knees bent and feet on the floor, for example, can I bring my knee toward my shoulder and have full flexion of the knee? So a lot of people with knee problems, they can do this without any pain at all. And then you apply a little pressure on the knee. See how cleansing this alone is for the knee? You could do this lying in bed. And then it starts to put pressure on the fold of the hip. Pressure is good. So you close your eyes, you spend a little time with it. This is a simple shape, but it's extremely practical. This is like taking a big step or climbing a ladder. It's also like putting your pants on, one leg at a time. That's my long-term goal for yoga. I want to be able to put my own pants on when I'm 100. That's how simple we make this practice. And I won't be able to do it if I can't bring my knee toward my chest. So I got to keep coming back to the question, and 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 that is, if I'm sitting at a desk, here's sitting at a desk, right? My fingers on the keyboard, my butt's on a chair, my knees are bent. Here's the shape, and my body, my tissues, my joints all start to adapt to that shape. The body will continually adapt to whatever you ask of it. So if you just start giving your bones and joints a little hygiene at the end of the day, instead of going straight for the pub or the beer, you say, I'm just going to lie on my back for a moment. I'm going to bring my knee to my chest. It's that simple. I'm going to give my knee some love. I'm going to give a little compression to my hip. I'm going to let the low back release into the floor. I'm going to just breathe through my nose and hold it for a couple minutes. I'm going to lower, do the other side. Now, runners in particular, and cyclists in particular, and people who sit at a desk a lot, all those people, they never really fully extend their knee. That's something I discovered for myself. So let's fully extend the knee. I put the strap around the ball of my foot, hands are high, and now I'm extending the knee and I'm flexing the ankle. I'm not trying to do something fancy. I'm not trying to stretch my muscles. I'm just giving my knee now the opportunity to fully extend. Remember? Extension, flexion. Here's extension of the knee. I can hold it with the strap, really drop into my bones, or I can set the strap aside. And now I'm really active. So we want the joints to be healthy actively and passively. So there's extension, here's flexion. Now we add pressure, we add weight. So if I can do that, then the question is, can I start to sit back on my heels? Oh, wow. I just had my knee on my chest. I just had full flexion of my knee, but now all of a sudden there's some pain in my knee. Stop and be with it. I've seen women and men in their 60s and 70s who thought for sure they were going to have a knee replacement come right to here and have so much pain. And then they continue the practice. And I just watch them over weeks and months. And all of a sudden, they get to a point where they're sitting with a little support.
Yeah.
Wow. What a peaceful way to sit. This is how cows meditate all day long. You know, and then with a little time, they start to scoot the support back. And now the joints just are starting to change long term. It could take a year to go from here to here, but so be it. It's just a few weeks, few days a week practicing.
We're brushing our bones, Jeff. Brushing our
We're
bones.
brushing our, I'm going to use that one. Yeah. So we're brushing our bones.
That's it.
And, so it's really quite simple, but we have to take this very kind and slow and thoughtful approach to it. That's what makes all the difference.
I can see this,
Because
Jeff, across the
if
globe
you,
now. There's going to be bus drivers, airline pilots. There's going to be people in work. They're going to have a pillow, a little mat, and out they go during the lunch hour. They're going to be doing their little stretches.
there it is. Wouldn't that be something? The world would be a peaceful place.
I'm telling you, it would be actually. No, it would be. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm looking at you here, and you're the first one, the first guest I've ever had on that's actually done a demonstration in front of me. I've other people explain stuff, but I'm actually looking at you and I'm kind of go, this is so relaxing. It's like meditation.
it
It's
is a meditation.
I don't feel, you know, sometimes when you're, and this is me, if anybody listening to this, I'm on a bit of a rant here, but you know, sometimes you're kind of talking to somebody and you're always wanting to find more information, but I'm just looking at you kind of going, this is just so chillaxing. It's just so,
Chillaxing. Oh yeah. Oh, it's deeply relaxing, David. And that's the other big reason to do it. If you've ever wanted a meditation practice but struggled, if you don't like to, I mean, look at it. People believe, people believe that you got to sit like this for an hour to gain enlightenment, and you got to do it every day, repetitively, over and over, same time every day. And you have to do this, and you have to have your back straight, and you have, see, we impose all these rules on the body, and the body abhors rules. The ego mind loves rules, and rules will keep us out of, well, I'll say it this way: egos will imprison, rules imprison. So just throw away all the rules about meditation and say to yourself, instead of bringing my heels in, I'll just bring them out a little bit. Instead of having a straight back, I'll sink into my low back and I'll let a little stiffness come into my awareness. I'll let a little hip sensation come into my awareness. And now I'm just going to, instead of listening to music or instead of gazing at a candle flame or a little bell, I'm going to use the sensations as my guide, as my tool for meditation. And I am sure this is how your dog, your cat, your horse, the cows, this is how they sit so contentedly all day long. Is how could a 900-pound cow have all that weight coming down into their knees and not be aware of that sensation? And that's what I call healing sensation, because it really gets our attention in this really soothing sort of way. Again, if the sensation is too strong, we reduce. I might hold the knees up a little bit, lean against the wall. So I might start my meditation here, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, just sit seated. And then I curve forward, a couple minutes there. And then I raise up. And then I might lean against the wall and push the bolster away and rest my heels, just the heels on the bolster, and lean against the wall and let the low back relax. Now the knees are an extension. They need that full extension. It's a release on the back, but it's also a compress on the front. And I can relax in the shape. I can activate my quadriceps and press my knees to the floor. I can even add a little bit of weight to my knees and go back to my meditation. And then I change it up and then go to another shape and see. So it becomes a moving meditation with peace as the guide, because peace will always show us the way. Peace always has our best interests in mind, and peace will ensure that I'm not being aggressive on my joints.
it's interesting, Jeff, because I know, as I said said again, is that there's a certain amount of calmness that I can sense even in this podcast. It's odd.
That's
And I don't
cool.
mean that, I don't mean that. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, it's eerie. It's kind of freaky. No, but it's a nice
Wow.
freaky, if you know what I mean. It's really, really calm. It's kind of, yeah, it's a nice
I love
aura.
that.
So Can I
Yeah.
ask then, so your skiing accident, which I won't go too much into detail about, did that kind of push you forward to understand more
Oh,
about?
yeah. Yeah. It took me a while to realize this. I've had three major injuries in my life. The first was to my knee, also a ski accident, and I couldn't walk for a week. I tore the remember that capsule that I'm telling you about that goes
Yeah,
around the knee?
yeah.
I tore the back of it, and there's not a surgery for that. And that injury got me into rolfing school. And you I could talk a long time about what rolfing is, but just search rolfing online, and the Rolf Institute where people go get it trained is here. So that led me to rolfing, to getting rolfed, which is work on all that connective tissue. We work on the shiny white stuff to get mobility. That injury led to rolfing. The hip injury led to a deeper understanding of pressure and compression for bones and joints. And then I'll tell you the third injury that not many people know about. But the third injury happened about 3 years ago, playing pickleball against my 80-year-old mom. My wife and I were playing her and another partner, and they were killing us.
How dare she?
And this, how dare she? Competitive, this competitive voice came in, and I got very aggressive and snapped my Achilles tendon.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and that one,
Thanks, Mom.
uh, I just, I
Yeah.
practiced. I just I really practiced, and I forgave the whole thing. It wasn't, ironically, a lot of pain, but it showed me how a competitive mindset really works against us. So I dropped the idea of competition altogether from my from my mind and brought even more peace. So so that's what led me to say there may be injuries, but there are no accidents. And if we're really honest, if we can really go inside and take responsibility, it leads us to a very healed place. Rather than pointing the finger and seeking blame, we just say, whoa, wait, there's a gift in this. And almost always the gift is slowing us down in some way. And we hate that. We want to get our life back, and we hate being slowed down. But if you just say, wait a minute, I got to slow down. I need to smell the roses. I need to take a little more time with my family and my friends and myself, and everything's going to get done. And in so doing, I get closer to my peaceful self, which is also the source of joy. And that is the purpose of a lifetime. That's why everything we do, and including especially this practice, it just brings us to that peaceful place, which is so important.
Well, tell me, Jeff, more about the practice. I mean, I'm nosy here. I have avitayogaonline.com,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see you have information for anybody for new to Avita, the practice, replays, pricing, education about how does the whole thing work?
Okay, yeah. So I think on the far left, there's a button that says new to the practice or something
Yeah.
like that. If you click there, I've found two ways for people to get started. You remember I mentioned the workshops that if you have a particular body part that's bugging you, like a knee or a hip or low back or shoulder, you can go to those workshops. It's only $37, and you get a talk. You'll hear me say some things in the talk that I've said here today, but you'll get a talk about that body part. I go into some anatomy of it to help you really understand what we're doing, say for the hip. And then I also have a talk on the physiology to really help you understand the physiology. Some people really like to know why we're doing things. I'm kind of that way. But some people don't care. They just want to do the thing that's going to be helpful. So whether you watch the physiology talk or not doesn't matter. And then there's usually at least three specific classes where I guide you through movements, just like what I did here, that target that particular body part. So you'll get a lot of instruction, and you'll get three classes that it's a 30-minute, 45-minute, and 60-minute class. So I make different times to really accommodate people's schedule. And you get that package to really practice. There's a PDF diagram that you can download that helps you remember the shapes. And then the other way into the practice is just by saying, I don't really have any particularly body part. My knee bothers me a little bit. I have a hip issue. My shoulders sometimes hurt, but I just want to get started. And then you can just get started. And I have series of classes. So the first series is 14 classes that give you the nuts and bolts of the practice. I really talk about what makes this unique. Some of those classes are only 20 minutes long, but it introduces people to the idea because I know it's such a shift in thinking. And then after you do those classes, you're pretty well equipped to jump into series 2, 3, 4, 5, and soon there's going to be a series 6. And they just start taking you all through your body. Every class is different. And there's quite literally, there are hundreds of them. I have hundreds of classes. So you really, as long as you can practice online, if you can open up your laptop, if you have some wall space, you can substitute a firm cushion for a bolster for a while. A belt or a bathrobe sash will work for a strap. You don't need sandbags right away. You may not need them at all. And then we use these blocks. These are the thin 3-inch foam blocks that we use these quite a bit for lots of different things. So it's pretty simple. It's inexpensive to get started, and you don't need much to really get going.
So we don't have to go to Boulder, Colorado. So that's what you're trying to tell us. It's all done online.
It's all online now. Yeah. Yeah. I taught 10 years out of the studio. I taught just before COVID, I was teaching 23 classes a week, and there were probably 60, 70 people in many of the classes.
Wow.
And people would walk out, like you're saying, they would just be so peaceful. They walk in peaceful, put their legs up the wall. I guide them through the practice, and they just walk out peaceful. It's pretty cool. Um, but I had to, COVID pushed me into a different direction. I had to do it to write the book. I had to do it to reach more people and change up my life a little bit. But I have teachers around the country, and I have one teacher in Amsterdam. But it's growing slowly, just the way it's supposed to.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you mentioned about the book. So it's about mobility for life. Is that
Hmm.
that's the latest book that's coming out now?
That's right.
And
Yeah, it comes out in August.
so what's give it an overview of the book. Don't give too much information. Get people to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it covers some of the things we talked about today. It covers the physiology. It covers the psychology. A lot of information in there that helps us make the shift away from exercise and fitness and into health. As you can see, we're not burning calories, we're not sweating, we're going for deep, lasting health. And that makes all the difference. This is the practice that will let you do all the things that you enjoy. If you want to ride your bike or go play football or play with the grandkids or the kids, this is the practice that'll help you do it.
And where can you purchase the book, Jeff? Is it on, I think, is it Barnes and Noble and Amazon or
It'll be Barnes and Noble and Amazon. It's not quite for sale. You know what? By the time you produce this show, I'll have a place for you to buy the book.
cool?
Yeah,
That's what we
yeah.
want
We'll
to
put a
hear.
link in. Yeah.
Before we go, I want to ask you, because looking at you here in the camera, you're very peaceful, very calm, very relaxed. You don't look 61. I can show you some 61-year-olds here, and you look like a young Jerry Bruckheimer. You look very, you look super healthy, glowing skin, everything. What is your daily routine? So if you're getting up in the
Uh,
morning, please don't tell me you get up at silly o'clock. It's not like 4 a.m.
no,
type of stuff.
no. I haven't done that really ever. I I get up when I get up. So my responsibilities are at 9:15 I teach on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:15 I teach a class. Mondays 30 minutes, Wednesdays an hour, Friday 45 minutes, and Sunday I teach a 1 hour class. Sunday is a 1 hour class I call an orange class. The other three are green. So the orange class is a little bit more demanding. We get into the muscles a little more. There's just a little more demand. And I found that people really, really like that. But if you're new to the practice and it's too much demand, then you stick to the green classes at first. So I I practice right here on this mat 4 times a week. Um, and then I also practice, I do a little bit of extra practice for my hip. It's like my left hip, because of the injury, it just needs a little extra attention once in a while. I do that. Um,
Any supplements? Do you take any supplements or special kind of like, are you an avocado man every day or are you?
yeah, I'm not a rule guy. I try not to have rules, but I do right now. I like the practice, everything, everything we do, and certainly the Avita practice, we want to get in touch with intuitive guidance. Like we just can feel from our heart what is right for us. And that's why we get all the information. We say, yeah, that feels okay. Let me try that. No, I'm not feeling that right now. So what am I, what do I feel? And I can tell you right now, uh, I do like avocados, but there are days go by where I don't eat them.
Right.
Um, there's a supplement. I do take a supplement on most days of collagen. Okay,
Collagen.
collagen is kind of a building block of connective tissue. So I have a collagen supplement that I take. I generally take a couple fish oil capsules of good fish oil at breakfast. Um, I I stay away most of my life. I've had no problem staying away from sugar. Sugar is not good for the joints, especially like high fructose corn syrup and those kinds of things. I think in Ireland, you have a little healthier diet maybe than in America. We have so much junk in our food here. And so you really have to watch what you eat. So I would say I eat a pretty wholesome diet. I like meat and potatoes. I eat beef. I eat chicken. I eat fish. Uh, I like oatmeal occasionally. I like eggs. Um, I don't know. I feel like I eat like just a healthy diet.
And would you
I
have
stay
any
away.
chocolate whatsoever? Would you kind
I
of,
love chocolate. Yeah, I love
okay.
chocolate.
Oh, thank
My
God.
wife does too. We probably eat a chocolate bar every 3 days between the two of us. We
Oh,
just kind of snack on it. But it's good chocolate. We don't buy the stuff with junk in it. Costs a little more to eat really well, but it costs even more if you don't in the end. There's a cost to everything, so it's worth spending the money up front to stay healthy than to have to pay the consequences later. So I drink clean, fresh water. I don't drink most of my life. I haven't drank soda. If there's one thing I would say that makes me look young, it would be the fact that I have avoided sugar almost my entire life.
wow.
Sugar is not good for us. And I tend to avoid chemicals in food. I read the labels and I stay away from anything that has junk in it. Now, if I'm at a friend's house or if I'm, you know, I, I'll never let something that somebody offers me from the goodness of their heart, I'll never turn it down, so um, I'll eat junky stuff occasionally. Uh, um, because I don't want to create a rule. I don't want to put myself in a box and be offensive to someone or myself even, so
That's very kind of you. I think they appreciate that as well. There's nothing worse than getting
yeah,
a guest coming over saying, "Oh, the chicken's not cooked correctly," or "There's too much salt."
yeah,
Or yeah,
no,
no,
relax, just eat the food. You're going to be okay.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
go with the flow. So, where
yeah.
else, Jeff, can listeners reach out to you other than your website? Are you on the LinkedIn's, the Facebooks? Are you dancing on
Oh,
TikTok yet?
second, I thought you were asking for my cell phone.
No,
Um,
no. No, we don't go
yeah,
that
I'm
far.
on. uh,
Credit card number,
what
Jeff.
is?
Credit card. I'm joking. You're gone.
uh, I'm on LinkedIn. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page, Instagram. I do have a YouTube channel. So you can search Jeff Bailey Yoga or Avita Yoga on YouTube. I actually have two channels on YouTube. One is one is much more spiritual. So as you probably picked up, there's a real spiritual side to this practice, which is simply for me, a spiritual practice is anything that brings you closer to peace. It's that simple. So imagine the ways that you could find more peace in your heart. Follow it. That's a spiritual practice. So I do have that, which is a lesser known channel. And then the Avita Yoga channel is where once a week, I put up a video that targets some part of the body and I share a couple shapes and have some fun doing that. I'm kind of new to that process. And so I'm learning and growing and figuring out how to be on YouTube. So if you want to watch me stumble a little bit and make mistakes, go to my YouTube channel and have
Oh,
some
no,
fun.
not at all.
Yeah.
It's all very real and very natural, and it's been a
Mm.
pleasure for me to chat with you today. I'll put all the links in to Jeff once the podcast has been released. So all this I have to say, thanks so much to Jeff Bailey for chatting with me on the Wellbeing Accruable podcast. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, David. What a joy to be here with you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.